guys, and welcome back to Move Plus. Hope you've all had a good week so far. Our workout today has 3 sections to it, so as usual we're going to start off with the warm-up, take a little bit of time to prep the body. We then roll into the build workout, which is going to be a couplet of split squats and bent over rows. From there we'll go into the move section, which is a 15-minute EMOM. We've got 3 parts to that, which we'll look at when we get there. And then after that's done, we'll finish off with a little bit of cool down stretching. So just winding back around now to that warm-up, guys, we're going to start things off with 1 minute of cardio of your choice. Now we're going to squeeze 2 movements into the 1 minute here. So you're going to go 30 seconds of high knees and then 30 seconds of butt kicks. Okay, that's what we're working with. You can do the same, or you can pick your own thing with that one. From there, the next 2 minutes are going to be broken up into 30 seconds of jumping jacks and then 30 seconds of alternating Samson stretch. Okay, and we'll go through that twice, so that will take 2 minutes. The remaining 2 minutes, what we'll do is 30 seconds of burpees. So coming down and then popping up, and then 30 seconds of reverse lunges. So stepping back, knee to ground. Okay, Em, you good to go? Yep. All right, we are starting in 10, so 1 minute of cardio of your choice. We're going with the high knees and the butt kicks, 30 seconds apiece. Ready, set, and go for it. So these are 2 nice simple drills, guys. They don't require a lot of space or any equipment at all. We're just thinking about getting the knees up around the height of the hip and just staying nice and light, nice and bouncy on the balls of the feet. You can obviously get your arms involved as much as you want to as well, getting that whole body nice and warmed up. So once we get to the 30-second marker, we're going to switch to butt kicks. So that's going to get a little bit more focus on the hamstrings, on the back of the legs there. We'll do 30 seconds on that as well. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Okay, so basically just trying to tuck the heels up as high to the butt as you can. Another thing you can do with this one is actually put your hands behind your glutes there and have them as like a kick target. So you can get your heels to tap your hands. That way you know you're getting a nice full range of motion each time. And in about 10 seconds, we're going to move into that second section. So 30 seconds jumping jacks, 30 seconds alternating Samson stretch. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this one, guys, we've got a similar kind of feel with the feet in that we're just going to stay nice and bouncy on the kind of mid-foot, forefoot, jumping them in and out. And as that's happening, the arms are swinging from top to bottom. So looking for thigh contact and then overhead contact. So 10 more seconds, and then we're going to push into that Samson stretch. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Okay, so with the Samson stretch, guys, we're looking for a nice long lunge, so ideally a little longer than normal, so we're really able to drive those hips forward. We're also going to bring the arms up and over the top, so with the left leg forward, she's going to reach to the left, and then vice versa for the other side. Three, 2, 1, back on jumping jacks. So at this stage of the warm-up, guys, if you're feeling good, if you feel like that blood's flowing, all the joints are feeling good, start to up the tempo a little bit. It's always good to give the heart rate a little bit of a rev up before we get into build and into move. Three, 2, 1, and back into that Samson stretch. So there's kind of ideally like 2 spots in the body here where we're really thinking of trying to open up. So one is through the hip flexor kind of quad region. So that's that lower body portion where we're driving the hips forward, sort of pushing that knee through as much as we can. The other part is up into the shoulders and kind of like into the lats as well. So as we reach up and over, we're going to open that up nicely. Okay, so about to roll into that next section, going burpees for the next block, and go for it. So we want to go from a standing start down to flat on the ground. So you want to make sure that not only are your legs and abdomen on the ground, but your chest is fully flat as well. So get right down, nice narrow hand position, and then we're going to pop up onto the feet, jump, and get a hand contact above or behind the head. 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and reverse lunge. Okay, so this is going to be kind of similar to that Samson stretch, guys, although we're probably going to just close it up just a little bit so everything gets nice and squared up now. We deliberately went long with the Samson stretch to really get into those hips. Now we're going for an ideal position as far as strength goes. So nice straight line from head down to that knee that's on the ground. And then your leg that's out the front should have the shin nice and vertical. 3, 2, 1, and back to the burpees. So last minute of the warm-up. You can see that nice controlled kind of roll down to the ground, so it doesn't have to be a fully strict push-up. Three, 2, 1, and those reverse lunges one last time. So you want to avoid the temptation to lean forward or press off your leg, guys. You want to keep nice and tall as much as you can. Three, 2, 1, and done. All right, so that's the warm-up done, guys. Have a little bit of recovery time, and then we're going to check out build next. Alrighty, so we're checking out the build section now, guys. This one is 10 minutes long, and we have 5 rounds to get through, so we're going to roughly look at about a 2-minute turnaround. First movement we have is a suitcase split squat. So we're going to set up in a lunge stance. Okay, dumbbell in either hand, doesn't particularly matter too much. You can also have dumbbells in both hands if you want. From there we are lowering ourselves down knee to ground and then back up again. So we'll go 10 on the one side, then we'll change sides and we'll do 10 on the other side as well. Okay, once we clear that one, we're going to move to 10 to 15. You guys can decide the number of a bent over row. So from here, we're going to lean over like a deadlift position and then row the dumbbell or whatever weighted object you have towards the body. So remember, we want to get that done within 2 minutes, plus we want to try and allow for a little bit of rest in there as well. Good to go? Yep. All right, starting in 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this movement is similar in nature to a lunge, but the key feature with this one that differentiates it from a normal lunge or a walking lunge is that the feet stay stuck in the one spot. So we actually end up just moving straight up and down like we would a squat, it's just in that split stance. So all the same mechanics of the knee just gently contacting the ground, nice tall posture, making sure that the knee is tracking well with that lead foot so it's not collapsing in. All that is the same from a lunge to a split squat. So this is just going to be a little bit about kind of balance and control as we move in and out of it. Now I mentioned with the dumbbells, guys, that suitcase position, you can have dumbbells in both hands if you want, or you can do as Em's doing there, dumbbell in single hand, and it doesn't particularly matter which side you have it in, as long as you're keeping the shoulders square and not getting kind of tilted off to one side. All right, so from there, 10 to 15 reps on the bent over row. So key thing here is keeping the back nice and straight, same way we would for a deadlift. The bottom mark is going to be about knee height, so it means that we're getting nice and far over the top. And then I like to think of like the belly button as that top touch marker with the dumbbell, so we get a nice full range of motion. All right, so that takes about 1:15 there, so we've got a little bit of time to rest till the 2-minute marker. Because you have the option of going 10 to 15 reps, so you guys can decide if you've got a heavier dumbbell and 10 feels like it's more than enough, do that. Lighter ones, you can obviously extend it out to 15. Okay, 20 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, one of the most common things to pop up as an error within split squats or lunges or anything in that family of movement is when we have a weight in our hand, it'll want to shift forward, okay? And then that will want to take the body forward with it, and everything starts to exaggerate into a bad kind of leaned over position. So think about trying to run that hand down the side of that thigh. So as we come down, it stays nice and level with it rather than tilting forward. So if you think about having like hands at your pockets, that's a good way of thinking, like a good cue to think about as you're going through it. Good idea too to think about where the pressure is in that lead foot. If it feels like it's very, very heavy into the toes and the forefoot, try to drift it back and dig the heel into the floor. Really try and get that rear chain of muscles kicked into gear. Now, I like that when Em's doing this, she's got a big emphasis on how her shoulder blades are moving. So she's not just thinking about where the dumbbell is, she's actually thinking about contracting that upper back and closing it. So bringing the shoulder blades together, opening that chest up and getting it nice and close. Nice. All right, that's 2 down. We've got 3 to go. Okay, 20 seconds to go. Ten seconds. So coming up on round 3 here. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now with this split squat, guys, if you find that balance is a really big issue, feel like you're constantly stumbling and trying to adjust your feet and trying to find your center, feel free to just ditch the dumbbell for a round. You can just get rid of it and just work with body weight. You can also set yourself up next to maybe a kitchen countertop or a table, put your hand on it or even just your fingertips to give you a little bit of guidance. Once you feel like you've kind of got the stance right, you've got the body positioning right, and you feel like you can do it without that contact, then we can maybe bring that dumbbell back into it. What we don't want to do is kind of wrestle our way through it and be stuttering around and having that weight kind of change the shape of the movement. We want to make sure we can be nice and stable. As Em's doing there, she's keeping her feet grounded in the one spot the whole time, staying in control. All right, moving back to the bent over row now. So we're going to go below knee height, pull to the belly button. So the whole way through this movement, we're going to see a nice vertical forearm. So at the bottom there, you can see it's vertical, and then at the top, it's vertical as well. And that's that pull to the belly button. That as opposed to me pulling to the chest. You can see the angle of that arm changes. It kind of goes into a really, like a deep bicep kind of a movement. Whereas if we want to think more about getting the lats and all those back muscles to switch on, that's why we pull low down the body. So we've got 2 rounds left. $20 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. Nice work, Em. So she's got a nice controlled tempo with this. She's not rushing through it. And she can also, like if you're at home and the weight option that you have feels a little easy for this, slow it down. Do the reps with the tempo, have more time under tension. That will make it more challenging for you. So you can see she's still got that nice sort of active shoulder and lat that draws that dumbbell back, doesn't let it swing forward, keeping the weight central and close to her hips. Now along the way with this bent over row, guys, if you start to get fatigued, feel yourself starting to kind of slouch the chest down, kind of rounding over, make sure you stand back up again, re-engage that posture, and then come down. It's really important that we're not hanging by that low spine. I want to make sure it's got everything lined up and we've got that midline engaged. So all the same rules as when we deadlift. Nice, Em. All right, another nice consistent time there. We've got one more round to go through, so we'll hit that at the 8-minute marker. Seconds. All right, last round, going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So from side on, we can see that Em's got this nice straight line through her body, right? So she's getting her right knee to ground, and in a moment you'll see it with her left side, that we can draw a line from her head, through her shoulders, through her hips, down to the knee. What she's not doing is pitching forward and having like a bent position through the hips there. She's opening it right up and staying nice and tall. As I said at the start, it's kind of like she's just straight up and down, almost like she's in an elevator. There's no kind of forwards or backwards with it. It's just straight up and down. So she's leading with that left knee and making sure that she's not thinking about like the top of the body coming down without the lower body going with it. Nice. All right, so that's the split squats done. Just going to finish off this last set of rows. Remember, pay attention to the shoulder blades. It's not enough just to touch the dumbbell to the body. You could be doing that and rounding the shoulders over, which we don't want. We want to get those shoulders wound back at a nice wide open chest. Nice. All right, so that's the last round, guys. We've got about 30 or 40 seconds left on the clock there, so we'll let that tick away. If you're still going, obviously take your time, work through it. Once we get to the end of that, we'll push on. Last 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, guys, so that is the build section done. Take a little bit of recovery time, and then we're gonna have a look at move next. Okay, so we're gonna have a look at the move workout now, guys. This one is 15 minutes, and we're gonna do it as an EMOM, so there'll be 3 stations that we rotate through, a minute on each of them. In those minutes, though, we'll be working for 50 and resting for 10. Okay, and that'll be the structure across all 3 movements. First thing we're gonna do is a sumo deadlift high pull. So we're gonna set ourselves up with whatever weighted object you have between the feet. From there, we're going to pull up to the collarbones. Okay, so that's movement number 1, 50 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Movement number 2 is gonna be a dumbbell slide. So we're gonna set ourselves up in a push-up position, bracing, and then we're dragging the dumbbell across with the opposite hand. Again, 50 on, 10 off. Last movement, you can do whatever cardio choice you want. We're gonna go with double unders, but you guys can pick whatever you wanna do. So if you're doing double unders, that's gonna look like this. Okay, and those 3 stations will cycle through 5 full cycles to make up that 15 minutes. Good to go, Em? Yep. All right, starting in 10. So we've got our sumo deadlift high pull up first. Remember, we're working for 50, resting for 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So the setup with this one, guys, as the name suggests, a sumo stance, so we're out wide. You want to go outside of shoulder width. Now, we usually would squat about shoulder width, so we want to be outside of that by a couple of inches at least. We also want to match the stance with the knee position. So you can see when Em gets to the bottom there, she's kind of flaring those knees out to try and stack the knee over the ankle. So you want to make sure that we never fall into the trap of collapsing in and kind of making like almost like an A-frame with the legs. We want to push outwards so the shins stay as close to vertical as we can possibly make them. Now, safety-wise, the big thing, like any pull off the ground, deadlifts, clean, snatches, whatever you're doing, it's a nice straight back all the way through, and if that ever starts to fall apart, rest, reset, do it properly. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So 10-second rest here, guys. We move to the second station, which is the dumbbell slides. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now this movement, guys, is one that is best done on the slower side. We've got the sumo deadlift high pulls and we've got the cardio station to go fast and get that heart rate right up. This one's a lot about stability and control. So it's better if we actually do a few less reps and really make it look good. So key thing here is that we set up the hands and the feet wide enough that we can create a good stable base in which our hips are going to stay fairly still in the middle. So as Em takes one hand off, obviously she loses 1 point of support there. And especially when she grabs the weight of that dumbbell, it's going to want to tip her. So she's got to fight hard through the midline and through the hips to keep stable and keep the hips from moving too far. And resting. So another 10-second rest. We move to your cardio station. So we're going to go with our double unders. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you guys have the option here to do whatever you want, and you can feel free to chop and change as well if you want to. Mix it up a little bit, be creative. You can do things like jumping jacks, running high knees, bear crawls if you want to, anything like that. Anything that's going to be pretty straightforward, something you can do for 50 seconds without having to stop too much. If you don't happen to have a skipping rope, you can just do jumps with the thigh taps. So the penguin taps is a good drill to kind of develop the skipping, developing the double unders. Three, 2, 1, and resting. So we'll swing back around to the starting movement there. So that sumo deadlift high pull. 3, 2, 1, and go. As far as what's driving this movement, there's kind of two pieces to this, right? There's the pull off the ground where we generate all the force and get all that speed on the kettlebell. And that's going to come from hamstrings, glutes mainly. Low back's going to be there as well, but we want to make sure it's really driven from the leg and hip section. And then we've obviously got that pull at the top, which is going to be shoulders, traps, a little bit of biceps as well. Obviously a fair bit of grip that we're holding on with the kettlebell. And you want to try and get the force from the lower body to carry over into that upper body pull. You don't want to do them as two segmented things. It should be one flowing nicely into the other. So the arms feel like they just kind of follow that momentum. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Okay, so getting into these dumbbell slides. So this is the full version. You might have noticed at the end of the last round, Em went to the knees. That's a scaled version you can work with, so either one of them is fine. All follows the same rules though. It's all about trying to keep the midline tight and keep the hips still in the middle. So I always like to think of this cue of like, if I was trying to balance a glass of water on my back, how steady could I keep that glass, or would it tip over? I'm trying to avoid the hips swaying right to left a lot. So this is that scaled version now, going down to more of like a knee push-up position. And resting. Okay, so back to our cardio station. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, if you have decided to do the same thing as us and get into those double unders, guys, if you find that under fatigue, they fall apart and you can't string them together enough, just go to single unders. That works well too. Very similar movement. You want to try and stay nice and consistent throughout these rounds. And resting. All right, so coming back around to the high pulls. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now you can do this movement with a dumbbell or with a weighted backpack or any kind of, if you've got a barbell at home, anything like that's cool. We've just happened to use the kettlebell just to mix it up a little bit today, but you can definitely work from that inside grip. You just would adjust a little bit. So if it's a dumbbell, you might sort of grab the insides of the bar. So you'd have like one of the heads in each hand. If you've got a backpack, just load it up, grab either end of it and just pull up into that high elbow position. So it might look just slightly different than how Em's doing it, but that's okay. It's all gonna be very similar kind of mechanics as far as like the leg drive, that hip extension into that high pull. Good, one more. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, if you happen to find this dumbbell slide to be way too difficult, like you feel like you're just rocking and rolling all over the place, you're falling over, that sort of thing, what you can change it to is a shoulder tap. So you'd essentially do the same thing minus the weight. And what we would do is take the hand, just tapping the opposite shoulder, and just going back and forth in that push-up position. It's the same principle of trying to lock everything in and fighting the urge to sway right to left. And you can scale it the same way as well by going to the knees if you need to. Obviously, if you have different options with the weight, if you have multiple dumbbells or kettlebells at home, you can take weight out of a backpack, whatever it is, and you can use that same object. That's cool. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this one will be closing out the third round. Obviously we've got 5 cycles if it's 15 minutes, so past halfway now. Might possibly get you to come forward just a little bit, Em. Yep, just a bit off camera. Yep. So if you're doing double unders, guys, a lot of it is just about the rhythm of it, listening to the sound of the rope, listening to the sound of your feet, getting it to coordinate and get that nice pattern going. If you find that you're doing a lot of like big over the top arm movements, you're tuck jumping, things like that, try to simplify it down. If you're doing this well, it shouldn't look like too much is happening at all. It's just a spring and a rebound each time. Resting. Ready, and go for it. So into the 4th cycle now, so closing in on the end. Now, one thing you want to make sure of when you do this high pull is that there's always a degree of bend in the knees, and at the bottom there should always be a downward slant of the back from your head down to your butt. Sometimes when people do this, they go too high with the hips, and they end up kind of over the top with the back slanting down to the head, so they're into almost like a deficit position. We want to make sure that we bend the knees enough so that we are hinging, but also kind of sitting down. So it's a little bit of like a hybrid of a squat and a deadlift. So you can see Em's knees always bending each rep, sinking down into that position and being able to leg drive it. 3, 2, 1, and resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with these 50-second blocks, guys, obviously we have that 10-second rest at the end of it, so try to take your rest there. But along the way, if you need to have some little rest, just a couple of seconds here and there, that's okay. We're gonna just try to fill up that 50 seconds with as much work as we can. So naturally there'll be fatigue that kicks in along the way, so the latter rounds are more likely to have some little just sporadic breaks in them. But otherwise, you wanna just try and stay on it as much as you can and know that that 10 seconds is there. You will get a bit of a breather. So here we see that scaled version again, just on the knees, still bracing strong through the midsection there. And it's just always lining the dumbbell up with the other hand as you bring it across. It's that same kind of shoulder width position. And resting. Okay, so back to the cardio. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Good, so just come forward a little bit for me, that's it. So if you guys have a look at M's shoulders, right? Something that happens sometimes when people get a little too intense about the skipping is they start to hunch up. They start to get really overly active through the shoulders and they end up burning themselves out. The whole thing falls apart. So although we're going to be like active through the body, I want you to actually just set those shoulders down. Don't let them get too hot and too hunched up. Let them just set down and work from there. Try to make it more about just that little kind of flick at the wrist, tiny little bit of softness at the elbow. And resting. Okay, so that's the 4th cycle. We've got 1 to go. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So as we move to this last round, guys, the fatigue's gonna be creeping in. Just check in, all those pointers are still there. Is the stance wide enough? Are my shins nice and vertical? Are those knees softening as I sit into the bottom of it? Do I have a nice straight back? And is that back in a nice downward slant at the bottom of the movement? The top marker we want to aim for is about collarbone height. So if you can get the handle of your dumbbell or kettlebell, whatever it is, up to collarbones, that's ideally what we want to try and aim for. And resting. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. One of the things you can do with this dumbbell slide, guys, if you find that you've kind of got it down, but it still feels a little bit rocky, split the feet wider. What that will do is that'll make more of like a triangle or like a tripod kind of a shape, get that really wide base of the feet so that when you take the hand off the ground and take the weight of that dumbbell, you've got a really good purchase in that opposite foot to lock yourself in place. If you're narrow through the feet, it's very little base there. There's very little to work with to stop yourself from rolling or tipping over. So you want to have that wide setup to control it. 10 more seconds. And resting. All right, about to roll into the final minute of this move workout. So cardio as the finish. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Nice work, I'm almost there. Last 20 seconds. Ten seconds. Ooh, that was a good set. Last 5 seconds. And time. All right, well done, Em. Guys, that is the move workout done. Have a little bit of recovery time, get some water in. We're gonna finish things off in a moment with a little bit of cool down stretching. Alrighty, so guys, now that all the hard work is done, we're just gonna cool things down now with a little bit of mobility work. So 2 drills we're gonna do. The first one is what we call a baby maker. We're gonna do it a really slow one. So sometimes this gets done as a warm-up drill. We're gonna slow it down and do it as a cool down stretch. So with this one, I'm gonna go for 1 minute on grabbing the toes, and then we're gonna move in and out of a nice deep squat. So as we go through this, the knees are gonna kind of flare out. We're gonna try to keep those arms sort of as straight as we can on the inside of the legs. This is gonna be very dependent on your current level of mobility. If you need to do this one holding onto something, so I might set up holding onto the leg of a dining room table or a door frame, something like that. And that way I can kind of sit back on my heels. What we wanna try to avoid is getting up onto the toes as we sink into that bottom position. So just making sure that you can keep the feet grounded. you will find that at the kind of the top portion of this, that back is gonna curve just a little bit, and that's okay, don't stress too much on that, but we wanna try and flatten it out as we sink into the bottom there, and try to maintain as much of that straightness as you can. So just slowly in and out of that, 2 or 3 seconds at end range, top and bottom, and then just a nice slow sink into it as you go through. Alrighty, so that's drill number 1. Second drill we're gonna do is we're gonna go on the knees, gonna sit back on the heels and have those arms stretched as far out in front as we can, so child's pose. This is one of my favorites because it's one of the easiest ones to do after you've done a hard workout. You can just sink into it. You don't have to hold yourself up or anything like that. So main thing is just make sure that those arms are as long as you can get them, really get the fingertips right out. So we're looking at sort of lats, shoulders. You'll also probably likely get a little bit of low back too, just because of the whole thing sort of stretching and lengthening out. So this is just a straight position at the moment, but you can also play around with kind of biasing to the left and right if you want to. Good if you're doing this one to do it on something soft. So if you've got a yoga mat, we've got a gym mat there. Just something to take a little bit of edge off the knees. If you're on hard ground, you're more likely to be focused on the discomfort in the legs rather than the actual stretch. So set yourself up so you can hang out in this for a little while. Alrighty, so those are the 2 drills, guys. Let's do 3 or 4 rounds of that. Take some time to loosen up. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time. And that's been your MOV+ workout.